Bienvenidos to Season 3 of Humans in Accounting podcast. In a world full of AI, automation, and endless workflows, we pause for a moment to focus on the real humans behind the numbers. Founders, leaders, humans share their journey, what drives them, and the moments that shape their path. Because behind every balance sheet, there's always a story worth telling. Humans in Accounting is brought to you by South Offices. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Humans in Accounting, where leaders and humans share their story behind their spreadsheets. As you know, I am Alex Roman, and this podcast is brought to you by South Offices. I don't have my hat. Here it is. This guy's South Offices. Today we have a special guest with a special shirt. Is Josh Zweig, co-founder and CEO at LiveCA. Josh, thank you for joining here in Humans in Accounting. How are you?
Well, yeah, Alex. I gotta get into the mood.
That's well. I'll tell the audience. I'll tell the audience, and now we can jump. And we have so many things. I'm super excited just to talk with you. The truth, Josh, is that this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that we're having a conversation in English, right? Because until now we have been talking all the time in Spanish, and Spanish with an Argentinian accent, right?
That's right. I mean, we could do the podcast in Spanish, but I feel like it's better for your audience if we stick to English.
Let's stick to English. But yeah, I'm super happy that we're doing this together. The truth is that you are actually in Buenos Aires, right? And in Argentina. Where are you? In Palermo?
I am in Palermo.
Oh, okay. And this is, and we never met. I met with so many people that live in different states and in the U.S. Well, maybe it had something to do with the fact that I just had my first newborn, but we already have plans just to grab a coffee whenever I have some time. I'll go and visit you, or if you come here to Tigre, just let me know. All right.
You got it.
Josh, all right, let's start a little bit. I want to ask you a little bit about your background, how you ended up here in this podcast that it's Humans in Accounting, and why you're not in another podcast from another industry. What have you been doing?
So you want to know, I guess, my accounting story? How do I end up in accounting?
I want to know your accounting story, right?
So when I was in business school, had a really good teacher that inspired a lot of us to get into accounting. And the idea was that instead of getting an MBA or some other sort of post-grad letters after your name, that the CPA, what it would do is you basically get paid to get this designation, and it would teach you a lot about how businesses work. So I took that advice and ended up working at PwC for a bit. And then I left accounting and I did some other things, and I eventually came back to it. And I started working at a smaller firm in Toronto, and that if you actually know how to do the profession well, you can help people save taxes, you can help people within their business in the small business accounting world. And then after 3 years there, I really wanted to go back abroad. I had been living before in Tel Aviv for a while. And so I said to my boss, I was like, look, can we do this online? I think I can work through the server, and there's ways to do this paperless. And he was like, no. You got to be in the office. Otherwise, I don't know if you're working. And so that was the impetus for me to say, okay, well, I guess I'll be an accountant online. And as far as I know, and certainly in Canada, I was the first virtual accountant, and I was using Skype and QuickBooks Desktop, and people would send me their files back and forth. And that's how I'd operate. And I'd have this VoIP phone with a red flashing light that I put next to my bed because I had to work Canadian hours, which over there was like 5 p.m. till midnight or 1 a.m. And so I was up long hours trying to stick to the Canadian office hours. And eventually I met my business partner, this guy, Chad Davis, who was out in a small town just outside of Halifax. And he was working with people, getting them into online systems, which was fairly new at the time. Xero was the one that he was using. And I said, well, this is great. You can help my 6 clients get online. That would be helpful, because that way I don't have to send files back and forth. And he said, well, I've got, a couple clients as well. Be great if you could do their taxes online so they don't have to go to an in-person accountant. And that's essentially how our company was born.
Right. Well, that's a great story. And when was this? When did you start it? You said that you were like probably the first firm. Like, what year was this?
So this is 2012, and it took us, I think, about 3
Well,
years before we actually became. So the firm grew quickly, but about 3 years later, we became the actual first virtual firm to get accredited from CPA Ontario as a training firm for other CPAs. That was a big milestone for us.
okay. Well, that's great. And now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're in Buenos Aires. Why? Why Buenos Aires? Why not Ontario? Why not Rio de Janeiro? Why not Tel Aviv? What's that story?
Well, the professional story kind of parallels the personal story in that as soon as the business began to take off, so Chad and I began to work together. We began to package accounting services under one fixed price. We began to expand into full back office. And as the business stabilized, I was about 2.5 years in Tel Aviv, and then I had a cousin who moved to Colombia. And he said, "Come visit." I said, "Oh, maybe I'll visit for a bit." And I left my all my stuff with my cousins, and I said, "Okay, I'll go over there for a month." And that month turned into 2 years in Colombia, a couple months in Bogota, and about a year and a half in Medellin or so. And then I sort of was because this whole business is online, was nomadic for a bit and tried Mexico, different parts of Mexico. And eventually I had a friend from Tel Aviv that said, come visit me in Argentina. And so I thought, okay, I'll come visit in Argentina. And I stayed with him for a bit. And that for a bit kind of extended and it extended and it extended to the point where it's now been almost a decade since I've been in Argentina and I haven't left.
Wow, perfect. And but you're going back and forth back to Canada, or you're living here all.
So throughout my time in Argentina, the first few years were hopping from Airbnb to Airbnb and nothing quite permanent. And then it was a longer short-term rental for
Right.
her, and that longer short-term rental turned into 6 years. This is a place that I actually bought 2 years ago and renovated it with some friends. Now I actually have a base here in Palermo, but I do a lot of traveling. I go back to Canada every 3 months. So we run our firm on a system called EOS, which means that we meet up once a quarter with our leadership team in person. So we get a really big Airbnb that can accommodate our full leadership team just outside Toronto. And that's where I go back once a quarter. So I get my air miles. And I do a lot of traveling both in and out of Argentina just for adventure purposes.
That's great. And I gotta ask because, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, the truth is that we already had a few calls, never in person, but all of them were in Spanish, and I'm like super surprised, like how. I mean, you're really good at Spanish with an Argentinian accent. When you came here, well, the truth is that you were before in Colombia, but did you learn like Spanish in Colombia, or you already knew Spanish before traveling?
So I had a very basic Spanish before Colombia, like una cerveza, por favor, in a very great.
The important stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I learned Spanish through a great app in Colombia. The app's called Tinder, and so that. But I was actually no, I was able to meet a lot of people in Colombia, and they didn't speak. The people that I was interacting with, a lot of them didn't speak very much English, so I was forced to speak Spanish. So that really accelerated my learning of Spanish. But when I got to Buenos Aires, I had a Colombian accent. I had Colombian dialect and lexicon and slang, and so no one really understood why this gringo was speaking like a Colombiano. And so I had to sort of shift my accent and shift the lexicon to a much more porteño, uh, Buenos Aires type accent and vocabulary.
And the truth is, I never lived in another country. I don't know since when you start calling living. I lived, or I was in Mexico City for 3 or 4 months at some point of my life, opening some offices there. But again, I'm not sure if that's and that in Mexico, you everyone speaks Spanish with a different accent. Were you able just to identify like? Saying, all right, now suddenly my accent is changing by living here because I'm getting with friends, and now I say more che, I don't know, the way that we speak, you try to force it. How
Well, no,
was it?
it's like people understand you better when you're speaking in the lexicon, the dialect, the vocabulary of the place you're in, right? And so it just happens to be that I've been in Argentina for a long time, and I find it very culturally inviting. It's easy to actually integrate oneself into the culture, hence the shirt and and the flag behind me, and so I think it's just sort of a natural tendency. You spend more time with Argentinians and you say expressions that are understood by all. And then eventually that just becomes the way you speak.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Last one that I'll talk about Argentina, but it's hard for me not to talk again. We both have this shirt. The truth is that we're recording this in less than 24 hours, or maybe exactly 24 hours. World Cup is starting. Were you here 4 years ago?
I was in Plaza de Mayo at the Obelisco when the
Really?
Galo they won the championship. I was here after the Mundial, and it was just crazy.
Whoa, whoa! I mean, that was super crazy for me. I was there as well. It's unfortunate that we didn't know each other by then, but I live here in Zona Norte. We call it like north part of the city. I was watching the match with some friends, and then we all went just to the Obelisco to celebrate. I don't remember how millions of people celebrating. That was crazy, but I'm super happy that you were able to experience that, because whenever I talk with someone, it's hard to explain, like, hey, yeah, everyone, all the country was happy and we were going just to this place celebrating. It was something unusual, but well, you experienced that. Thank you for answering all these questions. Let's go back. I want to talk a little bit that this podcast is called Humans in Accounting. We covered a lot of part of the human part. Let's talk a little bit about the accounting part. And I wanna focus, and I wanna ask you about, well, now everyone is talking about AI, and when I say now, it has been like this for, I don't know, maybe now a few years, but each day there's a new tool, there's a new automation, there's a new agent, there's something new every week. And the truth is that clients and customers of accounting firms are kind of expecting a little bit more as far as accountants, as far as the bookkeepers, as far as what they're doing. What's your perspective from AI? Like, how is this impacting our jobs, or accounting jobs?
So I think that, first of all, I think there's the emotional impact of AI. And I think a lot of us have gone through a certain cycle. At the beginning, it's a little bit of a denial, like, okay, it's maybe a year ago, ChatGPT is just it's a conversation helper, can help people write emails, but it's not going to make a big impact in the industry. And then there's this fear that starts to happen. Oh my God, AI is going to take all our jobs. Right? Everything's going
Right.
to, and I think that fear is still out there, right? This idea that AI is gonna replace us as accountants and as humans. And I think the conversation is shifting now to what is actually happening, which is AI is simply another technology that we'll have to use. So the analogy I now have come to terms with, it's like when accounting went through all these different phases, like from paper to the spreadsheet, and then it's from the spreadsheet to using accounting software, and then cloud accounting, right? So we've been through multiple different evolutions here, and this is just, I think, another evolution. It's faster and it's more complex, perhaps, but it is just another evolution. And even in my career, so I've been an accountant for like 20 years, and at the beginning of my career, I was doing manual bookkeeping. It was in Caseware Desktop, and I had bank statements on my desk, and I would copy the bank statement lines into Caseware, and that's how I'd do bookkeeping. Today, no client would pay me 20 hours of bookkeeping to do what someone could do in half the time or less in something like Zero QuickBooks. It just
Exactly.
you wouldn't do it. I couldn't charge those prices. So I think the same thing is happening with AI. Whereas what's going on is there is this new technology that's making things faster and cheaper to do the actual data preparation part, right? And so when that happens, you basically have to decide, to do two things. One, I mean, if you refuse to use the technology, fair enough, but just people are not going to pay your prices, whatever your hourly rate is, right, to do something that they can get somewhere else for less, right? So I think your options are, well, A, you could lower your prices. Suppose that is an option, or you move up the value chain, right? And I think that's sort of that's the direction that we're taking, which is the idea of, well, what does it mean to actually move up the value chain?
Right. The thing is, I agree with you 100%. But as you know, here at something that I noticed, or this is my perspective from here at South Office, is that the truth is that I feel probably, I don't know, like bookkeepers, let's say the typical bookkeeper, it's something that I feel that eventually it's gonna, I don't know, if disappear, or because most of the things are gonna be done by AI. But here we're talking in June of 2026. And the truth is that we have many accounting firms that are reaching out to us saying, hey, I need us like a human being doing this work. And I'm not sure if this is something that they needed for only the next 2 months, or if this is something that I don't know, maybe the position it's going to change, and what a bookkeeper is doing now, it's not going to be the same as what they're going to be doing, and yeah, the next few months or in the next year. So that's like the only question that I have. And honestly, I have an answer. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I feel that maybe accounting managers positions, or like there's always going to be a human who will be doing, or making sure that what AI is doing is doing it correctly. I don't know.
I think, look, I think there's a difference between what we call the role and then, what different functions in the accounting space do. So, not getting into semantics, but I do think that to some extent, our job titles will remain more or less the same, or they could remain more or less the same, but what that person does and how they do the work is going to change. So let's take the example of like a graphic designer. Before, a graphic designer, if they had to do some sort of pamphlet, or part of a campaign, they would do the planning for this particular pamphlet and know their audience and understand the brand. And so they do a whole bunch of planning work, and then they'd spend a few days or whatever it took in something like Photoshop to design the thing, right?
Right.
So now the difference is you can't command the same salary as a graphic designer, right, for a production effort that you can use AI to do instantly. So if instead of doing, let's say, 3 days for the actual production of the pamphlet, AI can do within a couple minutes, right? So how the graphic designer role changes is it's now more like a creative director. Instead of doing one pamphlet, maybe you're doing 10, and you're also doing banners or different brochures, right? It's almost like you're now the creative director of this sort of division, this design division. And that's what it means to move up the value chain. You're spending a lot of your time still using your design skills, your planning, know the audience, understand the brand, taking responsibility for the work, right? But much of your value is there, and just less of it is sitting in the production effort bucket, right? So if you take that thinking to accounting, if you look at bookkeepers, you say, well, if one part of the value proposition of a bookkeeper is to categorize transactions, right, on a basis manually. Maybe
Right.
that was the value proposition a couple of years back, right? Now that value proposition, not that it's not part of it anymore, it's just that it's being commoditized, right? Because AI can do part of that, right? You already can do this in Xero and QuickBooks with an auto reconcile function. Yes, it's not that accurate, but it will certainly get better, right? So if that part of the value proposition becomes commoditized, becomes devalued, right? Well, then a bookkeeper, instead of doing 10 files manually, might do 20 or 30. And their role is less about actually manually categorizing the transactions, but more of their professional judgment, catching exceptions, right? Client communication. So your job is going to be, hey, is the AI doing this right? Right? Maybe it's giving better instructions. Maybe it's training, right? So you're now overseeing a whole bunch of files rather than doing the production effort. And I think that's how our industry is starting to shift.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's a good parallelism with or analogy with the graphic designer. I agree, but at the same time, I feel all right. Well, what's going to happen like in 6 months, when instead of I don't know, if now they're just checking that everything is accurate from 30 clients. Now the AI already has a specific agent that it's doing the stuff that the bookkeeper is already doing. Is there going to be at some point that everything is going to be done by AI and we're not going to have jobs anymore eventually? I don't know.
I
I
mean,
asked
I
that
think we're still
myself.
very far from like 100% accuracy, right? The thing is like, imagine, I just thinking about this the other day, like going to laser eye surgery. I got laser eye surgery like 2 years ago. And imagine they said, hey, there's a 98% chance of success. Well, that's pretty high. But a computer's doing it. And if it doesn't work, too bad, right? And that feels like very uncomfortable. Like, I don't want a 2% chance of blindness or some other, right? I want a face. I want someone to tell me it's going to be okay. I want someone to ask questions if I feel discomfort, right? I want the empathy side. So I think it goes, the same in professional services, in particular accounting. Even if AI becomes 99% accurate, I want a human to take responsibility for the work, right? I want someone to say, no, 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 I looked at it and it's good. So I don't think that necessarily means that 99% moves up to 100. Of course, there's human error, right? But at least I've got the comfort now that another human is taking responsibility for the work, and accountability lies with that person, right? And if I have an issue, if I need to make myself heard, if I have feedback, I can actually feel heard through that person, right? I think that human connection is not something we're going to lose.
Yes, yes, 100%. I was reading or I was watching a video, or I don't know how I got this information, but someone was saying that in the future, us or maybe our children, all the things or who people who will pay more just to have a human being like a doctor who's gonna tell you, hey, everything is gonna be it's gonna be fine and tell you face to face. And maybe what they're doing it's gonna be by robots or AI. But it's important just to have someone who's gonna take accountability and say, hey, look, or that made me remind it reminds me another example of flying an airplane. If you get into a plane that it's there's no pilot, okay, there's a 99.9%, but maybe some people will feel a little bit more comfortable that if anything happens, you have an actual human being that it's gonna be there in the plane and it's gonna his life is in danger as well, and maybe some people would prefer that. I don't know.
Yeah, it- like we're starting to see. So of course, self-driving cars is a thing, right?
Right.
I think it's one or the other. Meaning, humans are not going to, it could be even more valuable than AI, because I think you not just have consumer choice. So there's an investment firm that I use that are basically robo advisors, right? And they came out with this is a long time ago, and I was using the robo advisor function, and at one point, from my point of view, the robo advisor function screwed up, and I was like, I don't know who to call. So I
Right.
had to go through the process and complain, whatever. And they actually offered, they said, you know what? This is actually quite common. We're rolling out a new service, which is having a human manage your investments, which is quite ironic because the whole purpose of the robo advisor company to begin with, or ethos, was like, don't pay a bank high investment management fees, right? Instead, rely on the computers to make the decision. And here, 10 years later, they're actually rolling out something that's very akin to what the banks have done, right? But what it does is it creates two options. They go, you want the robo advisor, low touch, almost no fee approach. Cool, there's that. But if you prefer accountability, you want to talk to somebody, we recognize that that is a higher value service and we're going to charge for it. And we give two options, right? And so I'm sure there's going to be accounting firms that are perhaps all AI driven, really low prices. You can't talk to anybody, but it does the work to some extent. Okay, that will be an option in the market. It already is. And then there will be firms that offer that higher touch, empathy, the human component. And I think they'll also be able to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we need just to do another episode like in 1 year and see the future. But yeah, this is super interesting. I don't want to miss this question that I have been asking to every single guest, and you're not going to be the exception, Josh. I don't know. I like sports. For me, humor is an important part of life, but also it's important. I'm a foodie guy. I enjoy eating good food. So I've been asking every guest what's their favorite food. So this is me asking you, Josh. What's your favorite food?
I mean, I think, Alex, I think you know the answer. If I'm here in Argentina, I'd have to say a good ojo de bife, a good ribeye steak here in Argentina is like that's my
You,
go-to.
you don't have to say, no, no, no. I'm asking, I mean, you are in Argentina, but you can say Chinese food. I mean, I'm asking, what's your,
And I'm telling you, when I go out to eat, I'll look for a good ojo de bife or bife de chorizo, a good piece of meat. That's my favorite thing to eat here in Argentina or in general, and it's unfortunately ruined the way I eat meat anywhere outside the country.
right, right. And what do you have on the side of that ojo de bife?
But
I'll tell the audience this ribeye here. What do you have? A salad or what?
I put chimichurri on top of that. So the ojo de bife with maybe a little spicy chimichurri is really good. And then, on the side, you could have a salad and papa fritas or French fries. That's sort of the complete salad experience. But that's my go-to.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. Something that I didn't ask you, but I do want to ask you. And your accounting firm, do you have like a specific niche? Do you work with a specific type of client, or not really? You work with
So
with
yeah, we usually it's usually businesses about $1 million of revenue or more. And simply because the way we price, we're not the cheapest in the market. All of our talent is in Canada. We do offer more of a high touch service. So that's the story. It's more of a need basis. Although we do have some plans that are on a tax only plan. So some plans that are as low as like $200 a month in Canadian dollars for someone that just wants a tax return and some advice throughout the year, right? So it doesn't have to be that, but that's why we say it's usually around $1 million or more when you want to invest in accounting versus maybe doing it on your own, right?
right?
And as far as industry, we do work with a wide variety of industries. We used to be quite tech focused a couple of years back, but now we've got a wide range from whether it's from consulting firms or other professional service firms to e-commerce. So a whole bunch of different industries.
Perfect. As far as the future, we already talked about AI, but what are your plans for the future? This is something I didn't ask you. Again, we're gonna see each other here in Buenos Aires. But do you travel to events? Do you go to events, or not really? Or your partner or someone?
I used to go to a lot of accounting events. I haven't done that for a while. My business partner, Chad Davis, he did a whole tour last year, but he's hanging out in Spain these days. So less in-person events. And so most of my travel, if it's not going to visit the team and my family and friends in Canada, it's going on different kinds of adventures. I love mountain climbing. So I've been to a lot of places climbing some mountains. I'm off next week to climb Elbrus in Russia and I have some other adventures planned as well.
Will you be here after that trip, or when are you returning? Will you be here by the final, the World Cup, just in case?
Unfortunately, when Argentina wins the World Cup, I won't be here to celebrate, but I'll make sure to bring my shirt with me so that wherever I am, I'll be able to represent.
You know what? I don't know how to say this in English, but it's good that you're really fluent in Spanish and you're gonna know this word. How do you say cábala when you know cábala? Just to be, do you know
Cabana?
what cábala? Like just to have the same T-shirt on the World Cup. So in that way, we think that we're gonna win. Do you know what I mean?
No, no, no. I
Oh,
haven't heard.
you
I
you
guess it is.
don't? Okay, so this is a new word a new word that I'm teaching you. Kabbalah. It's kind of like being superstitious. Like if you're what?
Kabbalah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kabbalah. Yeah. Like if you go and watch the game with your friends and you're sitting in a specific order, just stay in the same order because we think that if we move seats, then we're not gonna win. So I was gonna say, hey, it's important for you, Josh, just to be here in Buenos Aires for the final. But well, I guess you can be in Russia. That's not gonna be a problem. Last one, Josh. I don't know, maybe someone in the future is watching this episode while they're running or while they're driving their car or just watching this on YouTube or in Spotify or an Apple podcast. And they are actually considering opening an accounting firm 2026. What's a good advice that you can give them? Well, what's a good advice, or what's a good advice that maybe someone could have given you when you started this journey in accounting?
I think those are two different things because the world really has changed with AI, right? I think the tools are different. The market is different. When I started, this was not saturated. Now there's tons and tons of accounting firms offering seemingly the same thing. It's really hard to differentiate. So I think the advice I give people today is learn as much of the AI tools as you can. Build a web app in Lovable, code something using Codex or Claude Code, right? Really start to understand the power of these new tools because I think that the firms that will be successful today were ones that use these tools really well to their advantage.
Right. And then I agree. There are two different questions, but I still want to ask you that other one. What's a good advice that someone could have given you when you started?
Yeah. So I mean, a separate conversation, but I can go a lot of different directions. But I think I would have benefited from some advice of what it really means to delegate. And what I mean by that is not just the standard, oh, to delegate it to someone else, but rather more of like the book, The E-Myth, which I really liked, which is about understanding what roles are required to scale an organization. So, quick example, the first hire that we made was just another CPA. We didn't hire office managers till 4 or 5 years later. So much of what we were doing was admin work that really needed to be delegated to a different type of role. And we didn't think about workflows at the time. We just thought about overflowing capacity. So I think it would have been helpful to hear, be really intentional about the tasks that you're doing and understand which tasks each role has to be able to do. So are there certain things that CPA, you have to have a CPA knowledge and expertise to do? Or are there certain tasks that can actually be done by someone with different expertise in a different role? That would have been helpful.
Yeah, that's also good advice. Even now, in 2026, the importance of delegating in order to scale an organization, even if it's an accounting firm or maybe any other any other business, that's something important that we all struggle. So yeah, thank you for answering that other question. Josh, I'm super happy that we were able just to make this episode together. It had super fun having a conversation for the first time in English. Looking forward just to, yeah, grabbing a cerveza or a fernet, or maybe having lunch, an ojo de bife with a chimichurri and French fries. We can do all of the above when you return from Russia, and we can even talk about how incredible it is that Argentina won twice the World Cup. Anuda Mofa, we say here that also in Argentina. Josh, seriously, thank you so much for being part of Humans in Accounting. And last one, maybe someone in the future is watching this and now they just want to get in touch with you. What's the best way to reach out to you, Josh?
You can check out my LinkedIn. So my profile, Josh Zweig on LinkedIn. I've got a website, www.joshzweig.com, that has all my socials there.
Perfect. I'll make sure that when we post this next week, we'll put a link for all social media. Josh, thank you so much for being part of Humans in Accounting, and hope to see you soon. All right.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Take care.
Bye bye.